Hi, everyone. I'm Teresa Lisum, and I want to welcome you to Evolving Women. And I'm coming to you today with my guest co-host, Maytte Dusseau. Welcome, Maytte. So glad you're here. And we're evolving women. I'm evolving, you're evolving, we're all evolving, and we're on this journey of evolution together. So to help with that journey, we're here to share uplifting messages, offer new perspectives, some tools, some resources, some wellness ideas, maybe some mindset shifts, maybe plant some new seeds so that we all evolve faster. We're also here to give you permission to be your best self. So, welcome. We're so glad you're here. And Maytte, thank you so much for being here.
Well, Teresa, thank you for the invite. I have appreciated our conversations and our connection. So I'm very excited
Yes,
to
to
have
dig
a
in.
conversation that's going to help the expansion of all of us.
Yes, for sure. So I'm going to start with something we were talking about. We are powerful beings,
Mhm.
and we are spiritual beings having a human experience. I'm going to
That's
give you a moment to sit with that because when I first heard that, it was somewhat overwhelming to me. So I'm going to invite you, my friend, to go ahead and share your thoughts on that to start us
Sure.
off.
Well, it's one of my favorite expressions because when I think that we are spiritual beings having that human experience, it connects me to something more powerful. And I love knowing that connection. And so for
Mm.
me, it feels like I made the choice to come here
Oh,
and to
yeah.
have this human experience because in this time-space reality that we're in, oh my God, the preferences, the choices, the richness of life is just really powerful. And at the same time, it's fraught with
Mm-hmm.
challenges and life experiences that sometimes are are a lot.
Mm-hmm.
And yet, when we remember that we're spiritual beings, it helps with those challenges. It helps to know that there's a bigger intelligence happening around us and through us and in us. So that statement just really says so much for me about how powerful we are in this moment.
Yeah. And I think it puts, at least me personally, into an empowered state, an empowered way of thinking, as opposed to a victim way of thinking.
Yeah. Yeah. No, and for sure when you are feeling that and in that empowered state because you know that you have everything that you need and that you're in this to evolve and expand and to grow, it does. It puts you in that empowered state. And for me, that is where I want to be because my
Mhm.
belief system is that I'm creating my reality always, every moment.
Mm.
And I think we all are. We all came here to create our reality through our preferences and through the things that we do and the kind of life that we want to create. And so to me, that's very powerful because I get to decide.
Hmm.
And that's a big part of the work that I do is to help others to kind of remember that because most people are living by default.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
In my workshop
Yep.
that I do, I talk about the fact that we have about 60,000 thoughts a day.
Mm-hmm.
85% of them, there was a study done, I want to say it's the National Science Institute. 85%, for most people, 85% of those thoughts are negative and
Mm-hmm.
90% of them are repetitive.
Oh, I believe that, yes. And I've heard similar
So
stats. Yeah.
yeah, so we're constantly like our thoughts are the same all the time. The
Mm-hmm.
things we
Mm-hmm.
do are the same. Our habits, our rituals, what time you wake up, what you usually have for breakfast, how you drive to work, like
Right.
ah, so it's empowering to think that it can be different if we'd like it to be.
And then there's nothing wrong with the rituals and routines and habits. I mean, I like routines myself, but I also like to break out of them. And like you said, living by default for our entire life can kind of stifle growth and expansion and evolution for ourselves if it's just the same old, and those thoughts are going over and over and looping and looping and looping, especially when they're negative.
Sure.
I mean, I felt felt myself slipping into that yesterday a little bit, even though I've been on the path of breaking that habit of that negative self-talk for a long time. It's still something I fall into because it is a default that I've tried to change over these, last so many years. But um, yeah, what's your thoughts on that?
Well, I think that you're right. I mean, rituals and routines and all of that absolutely can be wonderful. I think that where it can be challenging is if there's no newness to it, or
Yes, yes.
if you're feeling like you're on that hamster wheel. Like that's
Mm-hmm.
when I think that it becomes more of a challenge. So
Mm-hmm.
to be able to kind of look and see, are they serving me? Because
Yes.
maybe they did at one point, and that's why you adopted them. But now you get to decide whether they're still are they working for you? And it's
Mm.
very similar to, what we talk about in terms of your beliefs, because as you and I have talked about, our beliefs are what is creating what is happening in front of us. So are they working for you or not? If they're not, then you get to make a new decision. You get to think something different.
Now that's another big statement. And I remember when I heard a definition of belief a while back, that it's just the same thought you repeat to yourself over and over and over again. So if you're repeating this thought, this loop over this story over and over again, and it's a negative one, then why can't you change it to a positive belief? Like that's all a belief is something you've heard or listened to or repeated yourself over and over and over again. Like there's no
Exactly.
substance to it whatsoever.
Right. Exactly. The only substance, and this is important, I think, the only substance is the meaning that you gave
Right,
to it,
right.
or the meaning that you give to it.
Mm-hmm.
So, and to me, that is so liberating.
Mm-hmm.
Think
Right,
that the only
right.
reason that I believe this is because I've always believed it. I heard it somewhere, I
Yes,
adopted it, it
yes.
became true for me. And that's the thing that is crazy to me in this moment, is that because they create your reality, when your reality shows up, you're like, see, that's why I believe that.
Yes.
Because I can't find any good men, or money's really hard to,
Right.
that's why I believe that. But
Mm-hmm. Yes.
reality is different. Those things show up in your reality because you believe that.
Mm-hmm.
And so I could change my belief and have a different reality show up.
I know that's crazy. I mean, it's a simple thing to hear, but I know in reality it's a little bit trickier to,
Yeah.
let it play out. Or is it?
Well,
Does
I
it have
don't,
to be tricky? Is that just a belief I'm holding?
yes, I would say yes. I think the tricky part, Teresa, is that it's like anything else. In order for something to change, like what happens when you create a new habit? My favorite example is learning how to drive a car. You
Mm-hmm.
sit and you've got the manual, and oh my
Yep.
God, look at how much information you have to pay
Mm-hmm.
attention to.
Yes.
Sit in the car and you're still like, oh my God, look at all the things that I have to pay attention to, and I have to do this, and like all of that. And then you get into the car and you
Mm-hmm.
drive and you
Mm-hmm.
drive and you drive, and all of a sudden, I don't know about you, but sometimes I get to a place and I'm like, shoot, how did I get
I
here?
know. I know.
Because in my mind, I was doing whatever it was
Yes.
I was
Yes.
doing, and yet the rest of me was driving the car.
Mm-hmm.
So I love that example because I think that that's how change happens. It's overwhelming at first. It's a lot to pay attention to be mindful enough so that when that different belief that you want to be different shows up for you, because it will. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
you've had that belief for so long.
Right.
There's a neural pathway that is in there, really, really
Really deep. Yep. Yep.
deep is a great word. And now you're changing it. But your brain is a goal achieving machine. So the more that
Mhm.
you do focus on this new belief, the more you're going to start seeing the evidence for that and the easier it becomes. It's not to say that the old belief isn't going to show up. Of course it's going to show up.
Yes. Yes.
But now you have a tool. Now you can say, "Oh, I decided that wasn't working for me. I decided that this is what I believe now."
Mm-hmm.
And in doing that on a regular basis, you're literally rewiring your brain.
Love that. So is it suffice to say that that repetition is doing the rewiring,
Correct.
creating those new neural pathways?
Correct. And then you're reinforcing it because you're being aware of how that's showing up differently in your life.
And then your reticular activating system starts
Uh-huh.
looking out for those things. Yeah.
Yes. Because
Yeah.
the amount of information that our brain processes that we're not even conscious of
Yeah.
is happening, but it's based on what becomes conscious is what you're focused on. So I love it that even your brain is set up to start showing you what you believe.
And I wanted to just like go to the idea that it is a choice. It is a decision that you make. And any one of us in any moment in time can make a new choice, a new decision. We might think we can't. I remember my mom telling me, "Oh no, that's just me. That's just when I suggested that, she could change something. Oh no, that's just how I am."
And
No.
there's a lot of people who feel that.
There is, but I think we just don't believe that we can make a new choice. Like I wouldn't have believed it 20 years ago. I never thought about that. Oh, I
Yeah.
mean, I have a say so in this. I can make a new choice to create a new habit or to create a new belief, pick something new for myself. Like that was not in my realm of thinking or possibilities.
But here you are.
Mm-hmm.
So something shifted.
It is possible. It is possible. And that's another thing for us to believe. Believe that it is possible. You don't know how, you don't know what it's going to look like, but that there is a possibility that you can make a new choice to do, follow a different path,
Yeah.
go create a new habit. So being open to those possibilities, I think, is a big step.
Yeah, I agree. And I think it's very empowering from the standpoint that you get to make that decision, like you just said. I think that what's hard for some people is that it does carry a lot of responsibility
Mm-hmm.
because then you
Mm-hmm.
can't blame things on somebody else
Yeah. Yeah.
or
Yeah.
things outside of yourself. And I think that that's hard for people to like it takes work,
It does take work.
you know? But for me, like the work is so worth it because then I am an active participant in how my life is going.
I love that. Instead of sitting there allowing things to happen, as you said, by default, we're the victim of so many things, being able to be a participant in what's happening and where we're headed. And yeah, I love that.
Yeah,
And I
I've
know
been
you
going.
mentioned the phrase radical responsibility, at least off camera. I don't know if you said it during once we started, but yeah, please explain that to our viewers.
Well, radical responsibility. I mean, it's always so easy when things are going well to think, wow, like I did that. That's so cool.
Yeah, yeah.
But when things are not going your way, So I'll give you the biggest, I guess, example for me, which really started me on a big part of my journey. Was I was in a very toxic relationship where he was the person that everybody could see, oh, he doesn't treat her well, or, he wasn't very nice to her, or whatever those things
Mm-hmm.
were. So it was very obvious that he was the problem. But when that ended, I had to take responsibility because number one, it takes two to tango,
Mm-hmm.
as they say.
Mm-hmm.
And number two, I picked him, I attracted
Mm-hmm.
him,
Mm-hmm.
and I allowed that relationship to go on way longer than I should have for myself.
Mm-hmm.
And so when I say take radical responsibility, is looking at, well, what was going on with me? How was I feeling about myself that I chose someone or allowed someone to not treat me the way that I know now
Mm-hmm.
I deserve to be treated? Why was it so hard for me to have a voice to say, no, I'm not okay with that early on?
Mm-hmm.
That would have circumvented, 4.5 years. So that's what I mean. Seeing challenging situations that occur as gifts that you can learn from about yourself, um, and part of the process. And how do you want to address those things in your life, like being able to have a choice about those things? So the good part is easy. When you're challenged, that's the challenge, is, how am I going to react to this, making a choice versus just reacting,
Mm-hmm.
and being able to see, well, why is that showing up? What's going on? Like, what's that about? How can I
Mm-hmm.
relate to that? It's kind of like when you meet somebody that triggers you, they say that that's because there's something inside of you that you need to take a look at. And that's a hard thing, I think, for lots of people. That's the part that makes it challenging for people,
Mm-hmm.
to do this work, because you got to look.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah. And that scares us. I'm not sure why, because I have been there. I'm not totally out of that, but yeah. Why does it scare me to want to look at myself and see my shadows and things that, why am I being triggered by that particular person? What is it about me?
Yeah.
It's all coming back to us. Everything you're saying is coming back to us. Our choices, our beliefs, our responses,
Yeah.
our
Meaning that we give things.
yes, everything comes back to us. We can blame it on everybody if we want to, but it's not going to change anything
Yeah.
because we can only work from within us and change ourselves. And then that's reflected in our outward reality, which again, that's another statement that's could be hard to accept. If we change what's going on within us, if we choose to look within ourselves and see why you are attracting that particular type of person, why that person is triggering you, why this circumstance keeps showing up, to really look deep, I think only good's going to come out of it. So why does it scare us?
Yeah. Yeah.
You don't have an answer for that?
Um,
I'm just hypothetically,
well, I
throwing that
think
out,
it's,
but
no, and I think you're absolutely right, because then you have to accept that there's parts of you that you might not particularly care for. Like, we are so complex
mm,
as
gosh,
human
yes.
beings, but that goes, so for me, it goes back to how we started the conversation, that we're spiritual beings having a human experience. So to know that it's okay, you are complex, and
Mm,
there are parts of us that maybe we haven't been able to embrace, because if we see ourselves as spiritual beings, then all of it is okay.
yeah, yeah,
All of it
yeah.
is okay. And we're doing the best job we know how to do.
Yes, with the information we have at this point in time. Yes.
Exactly. So we
Yes.
can have compassion and we can have grace.
I was
And I
just going to
think that
say.
that's the result of that work, is to come to a place of knowing, like, I'm okay. Like everything that has happened and all those parts and pieces are part of who I am in this moment.
Mm-hmm.
And I love myself.
Mm-hmm.
Like,
Which is another thing that people struggle with is that self-love piece, no matter how they're showing up in the world at this point in time, still to be able to love ourselves is a whole nother thing
yeah.
with all the negative and the positive and the, you know, the triggers and being able to love all of that could be seen, I'm going to say, as a challenge in quotation, air quotes, because I don't want to label it as a negative thing, but yeah, that whole self-love piece. I think some people see it as a trite, fluffy thing, but it really is so true that we really have to at least like ourselves,
Right. Well, for me, it's at the core. It's at
Mhm.
the core of everything because we're spiritual beings having a human
Yes,
experience.
yes.
And so that means that I am an expression of consciousness.
Mm.
And as my infinite intelligence, universe, God, whatever that is, doesn't get it wrong.
Yeah, 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 yeah. I love that. Thank you for that. Like you
And
said, that I don't want to say that forgives everything, but that gives us grace
yes,
to embrace ourselves, embrace that aspect of ourselves, and trust that aspect of ourselves.
yeah. I love how Abraham Hicks talks about it. Our inner being is what's connected to source, is how he describes it. And anytime that we are feeling anything other than love and appreciation and goodness, it's because we're seeing ourselves through different eyes, because our inner
Mm-hmm.
being sees nothing but our brilliance and our goodness and our pureness and all of that.
Mm-hmm.
And the rest of it is a separation from that.
Yeah, yeah. Let's speak more about that because there's a disconnect between what our divine spiritual self sees us, all of, spirit, consciousness, God, whatever you want to label it as,
Mhm.
sees us in our brilliance and our light and our brightest selves. And we're seeing ourselves as our flawed, imperfect, oh, I screwed it up again self. And we're feeling maybe these conflicting feelings and thinking these conflicting thoughts because there's like a disconnect.
Yeah.
And I
For,
think
for,
that causes some issues that we don't really know why that's happening. Why are we feeling this way?
well, it goes back to the question of who am I? And in answering that question, and back to the beginning, it's our choice. Like the only reason that we feel the way that we feel about ourselves is the programming. It was our
Yeah. Yeah.
parents, it was our teachers, it was all of those things where we made decisions and we gave those situations meaning,
Mm-hmm.
and we grow up with that and all the messages, because it's so
Yeah.
layered.
Yep.
It's not just the programming. I mean, we can talk about the programming in a very global sort of, the patriarchy versus
Yes.
feminine,
Yes.
like it's big.
Mm-hmm.
So I think that for me, what is exciting about the work I do is I just want people to remember like their brilliance, that their
Mm-hmm.
consciousness being expressed, like they
Yes.
are just and so powerful.
Yeah.
What an
Yay.
amazing combination. Like you're all of this and you're powerful. And
Mm-hmm.
as we talked, many people have no clue about that, even though
Yep.
I'm think that we're becoming more and more awakened,
Oh, yes.
and that's
Mm-hmm.
super exciting because the more people who have a sense of who they really are, like that's super powerful.
Mm-hmm. And our world can only get better and better the more and more people who realize that.
Yeah.
But I do want to touch upon the programming. I'm so glad you brought that up. It's almost like if you realize you've been programmed from birth by society and messages and, like you said, authority figures and, family beliefs. They're bringing all of their stuff in together, and you're getting the brunt of that. And we don't realize we're being programmed. So I think once you have, at least for me, that logical, conceptual knowledge and understanding or acceptance of that, it's easier to, I'm going to use the word disconnect again from it. Oh, that's just a program. Oh, I mean, it's not really us as our true identity.
Correct.
It's just something we've been programmed with. So
Yeah.
it kind of takes some of the emotional component out of it, at
Yeah.
least for me.
Yes. Yes.
And it's like, oh, if I was just programmed to think that way, then I can create a new program
Correct.
for myself and move forward on with that new programming. The sad part is it's like taken me like the bulk of my life to undo my programming or
Yeah.
to shift it to something better.
Yeah.
And I had a great life, so it's not like I was having major trauma throughout my life because I wasn't, but I still had these programs running in my background, in my subconscious, that was causing me to think certain ways and make certain decisions. And then once I had the realization, oh, it's just a program, it's just that belief, that repetition that I've been telling myself, then for me, it was easier to change that program with that knowledge for myself, that understanding.
And for a lot of people, they come to that realization through some kind of really serious kind of situation.
Mm-hmm.
A near-death experience, a
Yeah.
significant car accident, a divorce, like something
Mm-hmm.
happens that
Yeah.
gets people to start questioning what's going on. Like,
Right.
who am I now? Or, so
Mm-hmm.
yeah, it's a process, but that's why we do what we do, so that more and more people can understand the reality of that. Because the thing that I just find so freaking cool is that when I started doing this work and the way that we've been talking about it kind of feels more spiritual in terms of how we've been having this conversation. But as you know, one of the people that we both follow, David Bear,
Mm-hmm.
and Joe Dispenza. I mean, there's
Yeah.
a number of thought leaders that the science is now catching up with
Mm-hmm.
this spiritual way of looking at things. Like now we know through neuroscience and epigenetics and quantum physics and metaphysics and all
Mm-hmm.
of these new sciences, so to speak, are explaining that there is reality to what it is that you and I are talking about. Like,
Yeah.
this is not just, oh, I decided to adopt these beliefs, not to
Mm-hmm.
mention that these beliefs go back.
I
So,
was just going to say that.
yeah,
Thousands of years.
yes.
And in our modern society, they were kind of poo-pooed
Yep. Yep.
and not given much credibility. And now, like you said, the sciences are starting to give them credibility
Yeah.
so that more people can wrap their heads around them intellectually. Because, we've been trained to really develop our intellect,
Right.
and we, to step out of that and to step into our heart and our feelings and our intuition could be, a process, as you said, to come away and yeah. And I don't know where I'm going with that. So I'm just going to stop right there. I had a thought and it kind of left my head.
But I think you're right. I mean, we're trained to be much more left brain than right brain, and that's where you get your intuition and your creativity and all of that is, yeah. And for most people, if you can't prove it, they
Yeah.
don't buy it.
Yeah. And I can be somewhat like that. I mean, I used to be quite a bit. I prided myself on being a smart individual, used my brain, blah, blah, blah. And then I had to learn that, oh, that's not all there is. Oh, there's something beyond that or beside that, you know. But just to know that science is now kind of coming together with that is really exciting to me because that really was helpful to me.
Hmm. Yeah, for me too. And I'm the same. I have had to work really hard to be more like I feel like I'm a heart-centered person,
Mhm.
but I overthink things a
Oh
lot.
yeah.
So I'm definitely much more in my head and
Yep,
have
me
to
too.
really actively work on being in my heart.
Yes,
Uh,
yes, yes, me too.
Work in progress for sure.
And we're all a work in progress. And I think that's important for us to remember as well. We are a work in progress. It could be a one-time epiphany, life-changing moment, but typically I'm learning from lots of conversations with people, it's a process over a period of time, chipping away at it. New insights come in, you incorporate them and do something a little bit different based on those insights. So it's an ongoing process or practice, however you want to call it. And I don't want it to be over with because
Right. Well, listen, we're always growing and expanding. That's kind of like in our DNA.
that's what I was going to say. I want to keep evolving and expanding because when I'm not, then it must be done here then,
Correct.
so
Yeah,
so
and,
many.
and it's the opportunity to just get better and better.
Yeah, I find that so exciting. Absolutely love.
I want to be the best version that I can be,
Yes, me too. Me too.
be able to create a life that, you're just really excited about. When I heard, I think one of the things that was very impactful was having heard about, when people are on their deathbed and, the level of regret that people
Yes.
have. And I really took that to heart and was like, you know what? I don't want to have regrets.
Right,
So
right.
every day it's like, okay, how are you going to show up?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And really being intentional about that because it's what we've been talking about. Like we get to decide.
Mm-hmm.
How do I want my day to go? How do I want this hour that we're together? How do I
Mm-hmm.
want that to happen? Like being very intentional so that when those belief systems that make us not feel good show up, that we can look at it and go, ooh, what's going on?
Mm-hmm.
What happened? What was I thinking? Because at least in the work that I do, it's always about a belief that isn't working for you. Because that's why you're not feeling good.
Right.
For
And
you.
just having that awareness. Awareness is huge.
Yes,
That's like the first step is having that awareness. You can't move forward if you don't have an awareness of what's going on and where you're at right at that moment in time.
absolutely.
So, oh my gosh, we spanned so much information here. I'm sure we gave out lots of nuggets that people can really hold
Yes.
on to. So where can they find you, Maytte, if somebody wanted to connect with you?
So there's a couple of ways. My website, inspiringyourbestlife.com. And
Love
that
that.
comes from used to do videos all the time, and I'd always end, I'm all about inspiring your best life, and
Mm,
I loved it so much. That's the name of my company.
cool.
And then also discovery call, strategy call, coaching call, call www.callwithmayte, my first name.com. And then I'm on Facebook, I'm on Instagram, a little bit on TikTok, all those
Mm.
places,
All the platforms.
all the platforms,
All the
exactly.
platforms. And we'll definitely include your contact information in the description with this
Awesome.
episode. So our viewers will be able to find you there for sure. And I
Great.
do want to offer a big ask to our viewers. If you like this episode, if there's information in here that will benefit somebody else, please share it and
Yeah.
have them subscribe to us so we can, when our next episodes are coming out. I want to thank you so much, my friend. This has just been, I just love talking about all this stuff. I remember when I first was exposed to this information, it was big. It took me a long time to inculcate it and bring it in. And even, I had to sit with it for a long time before it started to really make sense to me. So for those viewers, if only take what you can take. If what you can't take,
Mhm.
let it go. Maybe it will come back to you in the future, but pick the pieces that resonate with you right now. And you have anything to finish us off with, Maytte? Do you have a thought? If not, we're gonna wrap this baby up.
No, I just want to thank you for the opportunity to come have a conversation. I think that the more people that can step into their power and really realize how powerful they are, it's just one more step to raising consciousness and
Mhm.
creating, the world the way that we want the world to be,
Yes,
full
yes.
of grace and compassion and
Hmm.
kindness and
Yes.
all of that good stuff.
Yes, for sure. Yeah, the world will just be a better place the more people who come to this information. And I just want to and I want to thank you so much for sharing your time and your wisdom with us. And I want to, as a call to action to those listening or viewing, think about some of your beliefs. And as Maytte said, are they serving you? Or your habits, are they serving you? Or have you carried them forward from when you were 5 years old and they maybe need, cleaned up, reset, reboot, changed in some way?
Yeah.
All
Yeah.
right, my
Because you
friend.
get to decide.
You get to decide for sure. My friend. Thank you so much, everybody
Thank you.
viewing and listening. Thank you so much. We will see you the next time. Bye bye.